Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Neurodiversity Gold Podcast with me, Jude Morrow. Again, thank you so much for all the reviews, likes, and shares on previous episodes. It really, really helps the show, and I genuinely, really appreciate it. So, thank you so much. And today's episode, I've got a guest with me who is a pro and expert in all things neurodiversity and inclusivity in businesses. So, we normally do a lot of inclusion work and courses and stuff with corporates and stuff like that. And I think people can often be, I suppose, confused as to what true inclusion actually is. So by the end of this episode, we will have a very good understanding of neuro-inclusion in businesses. And my guest today is Georgia Kyriakopoulus.
Yeah.
Georgia, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on your show. It's a real pleasure.
And as I always say every single week, the pleasure is absolutely all mine. And I suppose my first question is, what is your story?
Well, my story is I come from a family with four kids. My father is Greek and my mother is Dutch, from which I think made me the perfect combination because I have the Greek passionate drive and also my Dutch staying cool and collective. So it keeps me in balance, and I got the best of both. But when I was a young girl, I always felt different. And, I thought it was because I was Greek. I was, raised in the Netherlands. So being on school and feeling different and having a surname like my really doesn't help with that. So I had a long time where I thought that people saw me different because I was Greek, and that made it also a little bit difficult during my youth and my adulthood. So and yeah, I've worked for different companies. I worked in retail, on the airport, for government, and then I started my own business because, well, that fits better with who I am. I have an eclectic brain, as how I describe it myself. I'm neurodivergent, and I thought it is better for me to set up my own business. Self-employment suits me. And I always did change development, and from there out, I've developed my expertise in neurodiversity and well-being, which I am doing now for a lot of years. And I also coach people if they are highly gifted or highly sensitive of ADHD. So this is basically what I do, and creating awareness in companies to be more neuro-inclusive. That's my goal, that's my mission, and my purpose in life right now.
And the path that you followed, it's remarkably similar to my own path that I followed because I started out, and I've spoken about this quite a bit, with guests on the show, is before getting into like my own businesses and stuff, like I was a social worker. I was a social worker
Mhm.
for quite a number of years, 9 years.
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, there were parts of it I enjoyed, maybe other parts of it I didn't enjoy so much. But I did realize really rather quickly that it wasn't really for me. It wasn't a good fit for me working in 9 to 5. You know,
Exactly.
it, it just wasn't really a good mix. And I mean, I've had and I'll give the shout out here. I've had the incredible Dr. Octopus on the show before, Perry Knoppert, and I'd love to get another perspective from you as well. Is what is the neurodiversity scene like in the Netherlands?
Well, I think it's in the beginning. You see a lot of companies are embracing it. There are some beautiful initiatives right now going on, and you see the willingness. You see that also the topic is getting hotter and hotter, as how I'm saying it. I believe 2023 is the year of neurodiversity in the Netherlands for companies. But what I also see, there is still a lot of work has to be done to create not only awareness, but also the benefits of having a neurodiverse workforce. And there is a how you say it, I see also the fear I have is that companies are not embracing it to just window dressing, but and how we call it diversity washing. I hope they are going to embrace it because they see the competitive advantage of a neurodiverse workforce. And also when you start changing your life employee cycle, those processes and policies more neuro-inclusive, you will see you always also support the whole diversity scope. By changing little things in this process, you will accommodate every person and every employee in your organization. So I think that's a big advantage also for companies. But there is still a lot of work to be done. But we do have some examples of really good companies who are already busy with it, like Philips, for example. And I have the privilege also to start with 3 amazing experts in the Netherlands, Neurodiversity in Business, the Netherlands. So that's an initiative from the UK. And we are going to build that bigger in the Netherlands next year.
Oh, amazing. I mean, yes, I'm aware of neurodiversity in business.
Yeah.
We've had some conversations with them. Really great initiative. It launched with a bang. Can't remember, was it earlier this year or was it maybe last year? I can't remember, but seems to be really great thing. So basically, there's going to be like a Netherlands branch of neurodiversity in business. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there is. And that's also something while the Netherlands is still like just starting with it, we look at the UK and abroad in America where those processes have already been embraced in their companies. So you also see a lot of initiatives in America also, and that that is only as for benefit for the Netherlands because we can point to really good initiatives. So also to your initiative and also to what you do, right? Like, hey, look at this. So if you need help, also look abroad and not only narrow and just look only in your own country, but look beyond the borders. What is happening in the world? Where are the good initiatives? And what can you learn from it? There is no one fit all solution. So you really have to combine this.
No, there isn't a one size fits all solution, and you're quite right. Where even whenever people come to us for like training or consultancy and stuff, they say things like, "Oh, can you help us with one strategy to include all of our neurodivergent employees?"
Yeah,
And I'm like, it doesn't really work like that. There always needs
exactly.
to be an individual element.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's also because the interesting thing of neurodiversity is that there is diversity in neurodiversity. So you can't compare the one ADHD with the other ADHD. And there is always a most NDers. I'm sorry, that's how I short or everything. So we have a variety of DND spectrum. So you can't say, let's do this for all the ADHDs in our company. So you really have to be aware of what you can do to make the workplace, for instance, neuro-inclusive. And how you can benefit from it if you do just some small adjustments, right? For instance, the lighting. We all know that lighting, if you can dim it, it would be better, you can accommodate that for your employee, and it's just a small thing to do. It isn't a big investment. And this is also something what I advise to companies, because I also have an inclusive interior design studio Sense, where I advise interior designers for more inclusive workplaces. And you see that they always think very complex and like, oh, that costs a lot of money and we need to do a lot of big changes. Well, you can already start tomorrow with some small things, and being very flexible also by doing it, and not like, okay, we need to ask for a major budget and then we have to go to this management level and then to the other management level and everyone has to agree with it. But if a person needs a noise canceling headphone, just make, order it and online and you'll have it the next day, right? So it isn't as complex as the most companies think. It is very easy to start tomorrow.
It is easy to start, and excuse me, I think it's great whenever companies do want to make that step and they do want to create a more inclusive culture. And I must ask, I mean, from the work that you do, I mean, how do you go about that? Like, if a company approaches you and says, Georgia, we want to create a more inclusive culture here for neurodivergent staff and prospective neurodivergent staff. I mean, how do you do that?
First of all, I do some research in who they are, what they do, what their mission is, and what they want to achieve. Because do you really want to have a more neuro-inclusive workplace and a company, or do you want to do this so you can show the outer world, like, listen, look how good we are, and just showing off, while internally in the organization, everything goes wrong. So I do also see that. So I'm very I'm doing that research really by sitting down with them, really have to talk and just ask them first how they see it, what their thought is with a neuro-inclusive workplace. And then often you see they have some ideas, also some biases, which don't fit with the reality. And so creating awareness, that's the first step, by giving also keynotes or joining a panel and just highlight first what the ND spectrum is, what all those stereotypes, you name it, and everything, what the media mainstream is like amplifying, and that image, I want to break that image down first and then come to the real understanding of what ND and neurodiversity is. And from there out, we can start redesigning processes. And I start always with the employee life cycle. I think that's a very important key factor. If you start with the right way of attracting your employees, your neurodiverse workforce, you should start with another kind of sort of communication. If you ask for, I had recently someone who wanted to recruit Java developers, and they had like in their how you say that, job application, they had excellent communication skills. And I was like, okay, you asked for someone who's very creative, is very talented in other things. They don't need to have that excellent communication skills. They are not the CEO or the director or the manager. You can ask for other talents and skills. So why do you need that excellent communication skill, right? That is a difference. So you don't need that. So, and you scare people off, because once you read excellent communication skills, you're like, okay, next, right? You don't even go to apply because you know that would be a little bit difficult. Because it is seen if you're sitting in the workplace with your headphone on, there is still a sort of feeling of others, like, oh, that person is not really socially, and is maybe also arrogant, and like, oh, that guy is not communicating well. They are wearing that headphone to concentrate and to give their best in what they are doing, and they are the most high performers in that area. So I think we need to change and shift that narrative of how we look to each other and what we really want. But basically, it's always tailor-made, right? It is exactly for what you are doing. It is always tailor-made. There is no one-fits-all solution that we just said to each other. I believe you do the same, right? You go and sit with your clients and then see what you can offer to them.
Yeah, it's remarkably similar. But I mean, as far as training and development programs, yeah, I mean, we would do wider staff training than some working with individuals. I mean, we do a lot. I mean, and it has grown and evolved over the years. And I mean, what you're saying, and to a large extent, does make perfect sense. But I'd love to ask, I mean, have you any real success stories that you'd love to share from, a client that has been working with you?
Yeah, of course. Well, I don't see them as like success stories, so I've never seen it like that. I'm just doing my job. But there is one where when after I gave a keynote, they really saw the benefit, and they started to set up a network, like an ambassador network in their company, and give them also like really the space and the trust to build a neuro-inclusive network. So it started from also the ambassadors, which I think that's a very good approach as well. And before you know, they were attracting also more neurodivergent into their company. So I see when I my work is also I fly in and I fly out. So I don't always see how it develops afterwards, and not always, because it is like also with you give them an advice, and if they act on it, they act on it. If they don't act on it, you don't always see that. And that's something what I said before, that I have also a fear of how can we monitor that they are really keeping doing what is best for the company to be more neuro-inclusive, or are they just doing this for 1 year as like a theme, and the next year they just drop it and focus on other things? So I don't always have the like on the longer term the outcome, right? I do see they have those ambassador networks, they still have them, but it isn't that you can really see. I don't see them as success. I don't know why. I just think it's normal to start neuro-inclusive, and it's just, it should belong to your daily work, and daily doing business. Yeah.
Yes, you're
I've never looked at it, to be honest, like that. So I'm going to think about that, and I'm going to go back to some companies and just see how it goes. And maybe from there I can see the success. I think it's already a success when employees get the space to set up their ambassador network and do things for their peers. So when that happened, I'm already happy. So maybe I don't have a lot of yeah, that's I think that's already a good sign for the Netherlands if that will happen. Of course, my wish is that on sea level, they gonna understand the importance of a neurodiverse workforce as well.
Of course. And I mean, it makes perfect sense. It really does make perfect sense. Where it's somewhat surprising. I would presume, with the Netherlands, of a very socially laid back nation and a wonderful part of the world, and I'd encourage everybody to visit. I mean, Europe is kind of like a large village, especially,
Yeah.
where I am in Ireland, people can, go here and there. I mean, it's easy to get places like, Paris, The Hague, Amsterdam,
Yeah.
Berlin. I mean, it's easier to travel around, but I mean, certainly with the Netherlands, please go.
Mhm.
Really, really beautiful place. And I suppose my last question, Georgia, is people are listening to this in the Netherlands, which we do have a listenership in the Netherlands, believe it or not, especially since Perry Canoppert came on a couple of months back, is how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, how can people? Oh, just through my LinkedIn. They can just reach out and DM me. I'm very approachable. So, yeah, you can just link me and start a conversation and maybe plan. What I do often is I plan tea and talks. So January is always the month that I do my rounds and go, to my clients and catch up. And I do that also with new people, just to uh, inspire my own brain, right? I love to meet new people every time and just communicate about neurodiversity and just see other perspectives and views on this. So I'm very open for contact, so they can reach out to me through my LinkedIn. I think that's the most, quickest way.
That's probably the most effective place.
Effective, yeah.
That is fantastic. And Georgia, that's been incredibly insightful. Again, tons of value from another guest on the Neurodiversity Gold podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. And thank you to everybody who's tuned into this edition. And as always, I will see you next week for another edition of the Neurodiversity Gold podcast.